Okay, so yesterday, interesting thing, like there's a lot of evidence here that was never introduced, and like I said yesterday, this thing he says, Zivik de Birchus Hashkivenu. Now, I'm not sure what the presumption is here. Is it a presumption that every time in the Shemona Esrei, excuse me, not the Shemona Esrei, that you say make a bracha, that it implies a yichud? Because I don't know where Ashkivenu came in from here, but that's where we're at. And the question is that what happens when you say Ashkivenu? So I think in the first part, it had said the idea that either Hashkivenu is an asafa, something new, or it's like a herald, or what we call it, a simon for what's going to take place. It's an introduction, something like that, to Sim Shalom, where the actual yichud takes place. But it's mashma that's a yichud that's involved in this Hashkivenu. Now, where we're at now is on page Sataf Samach Vav, and we're up here where it starts in the left column, and the Yeshua should be Arno, it should be Biaro, that explain it like this. So that's the other idea of a gam hu mitzad the kelim epinemim, and it's also talking about kelim epinemim. So what kelim epinemim is he talking about? The there's two different yichudim that take place at this time. Echad zivad shal yisod deser anpet hayoredim is dabegim rochol ba'olam habriya, and we understand there's always a machlokas on this, is whether or not it's a horror from Zeranpin, or actually some way Zeranpin goes down into Bria because that's where his soulmate is located. Parasheni is Zivug the Yaakov Aleah, Hana'asa ba'olam Atzilus. And the second Penimius is Yaakov Aleah, which is taking place at Olam Atzilus at this time. Okay, so that's another idea. But that's Ali Nar, but the Nali said that Chazivug the Birchus Shkivenu is it something else. He says it would be called Shaos Kolol the Yom Gimel. So this would be what's taking place. You talk about Hashkivenu here. Hashkivenu is at nighttime. So he says that this is actually the culmination of the Yichud of Kad Shaos. So he said the Yom Gimel, that for the third day, which means that this is where the Yichud is going to take place. And this takes place at the Filas Apayim, the Chakras, the Asar of the Zivid, the Keda Benimim, the Kad Shah HaKolo. The Benefilis Apayim, the Mincha, Na'asa Zivig, the Kelim Em Sa'im Shalahem. So here's a whole different completely count of a Birchus Hashkivenu, the Arvis, Na'asa of the Zivig, the Kelim Em Sa'im Shalahem. Amdam, Das Asada, but wait a minute, he says Das Asada, the Od, other besides be him, the Chazivah, the Kad Shah Kolol, he says Nasib Rak Benefilis Apayim, the Chakras, V'chein Mishmalos Lashon RASHASH, also, so that is a daya that is not supported by a lot of other people, I guess. Okay, so it says of Ve'inyan Emisach Na'asa Chazivah because for Mishnah Chasidim, so there's something written over here in the Mishnah Chasidim. And he said of Siddur Reb Shabsai, the Zivig Zen Na'asa Koidu Chatzos, the Yichud takes place before Chatzos. I'm not sure what it is. He says of Ata ba'arvis and not an arvis. So we thought that there's a Yichud at Hashkivenu. He says, well, the Yichud actually doesn't take place at Marav. Ovekavonim kan al shem ha'asid, that what you have in mind is that he doesn't spell out what takes place at like say later in the night. Right before Chatzos, he doesn't say if it's Hashkivenu or there's a Yichud that takes place. But the Kavanah is that when you're saying Hashkivenu, once again that you're doing it for the future. A Yichud that's going to come. It's like once again, it's like an announcement or something like that, a preparation for what's coming. So 1 second, let me see. I'm okay. Okay, now we're going to the next page. Page number drush base. So this is a different drush. So that one was okay. That was that drush. Leah. Now we're talking about Leah here. Sheyesh lo zivig rak ba'arvis below chakras amil. Now we already said that Leah has a yichud with Yisrael above the chazeh. or below the chaza, we don't know which one. Let's say it's a bedrush base, and the leah, yesh lo zivug rak ba'arvis, ve'ele b'sharpus, a mentcha na'asa rak b'chidas chibuk. It's not good enough for a, it's very interesting is that Leah waits till the nighttime, and then he seems like her yichud takes place then. As das haleshen mahagahosa. This is that we seeing the leshem here. So whether you're talking about shachris, you're talking about mincha, there's a real yichud that takes place in Leah. Now here's a new idea. Now we know that the yisod is their anpin, or the yisod, let's say, as an ataras yisod. So let's go back over it. He says, "V'keven shachazivug sham hu im zer anpin al yedera bechidas yisod shebechaz," that part of the extension shalo that extends down. Lo ima bechidas yisod the miti shalo. Now here's a whole concept here. He's calling the yisod that's at the neck before you get to the extension of the atara. He says that's the place where the yichud, really the big time yichud, takes place. Okay, nechshav hu rak the bechidas chibuk. So since it's not the ultimate yichud using the ultimate organs of yichud, so therefore we consider it, it's not that it's not a yichud, it's just in relationship, and this is one of those places, that in relationship to the yichud, excuse me, got a little cold here, the weather's been lovely around here. Okay, nechshav hu rak the bechidas chibuk, so it's just considered to be hugging in relationship to the big time yichud that you could have if it was possible that it was done above the chazah. The kol ha'amar b'drush zeh, hu ala kele b'benimim, everything we're talking about is kele b'benimim. The b'mentcha nasa zivug yisrael v'leya the kele b'benimim. V'hantach v'arbis nasa zivug the Yaakov v'leya the kele b'benimim. V'chaleshen the shitazo, so leshen he throws in, according to his way of thinking, that chazivug the arbis ha'amor kan hu Yaakov v'leya is Yaakov and Leah. Did we just say that? Okay, he holds that. He said to be a kavod, shuhu na'asa im yisod hagomer the Yaakov, and think this way that it's really taking place in the highest level of the yisod of Yaakov, who nikra b'shem zivug, and that is called a yichud. V'edach of the zivug of the chakras of bencho should na'asa have yisod shebechazed is their anpin, and nechshav in the bechidas zivug rak the bechidas chibuk. So we see a place here where relativity has to do with. Now, I think we've learned this elsewhere, and nobody said these different ways of looking at the same thing. So he said, but here we got the concept that relativity, since it is a yichud that takes place at the chazer, he says, is a yichud, but relative to the yichud that could take place at the neck, which is really the place of the yisod, you get much more juice over there, and so relative to it, so that we would call it this, so the cause is a hibuk in relationship, finally getting it out here, in relationship to the yichud that could take place up above. Now he says of Yofa Shah, here's another idea, Shah Khan, Bir Gam Hu Ma'ayin Zeh, so he also explains similar to that too. Because so all of these yichudim that take place from the chest upwards, he says that too. Is what we call him a chibuk. It's just a hugging. But over there you make a yichud for the chaza up above. But he says that this yichud that takes place is actually taking place as a chachana. So he said, "The achra itself shuhu na'asa b'kol shiur kuba zer anpin," and that is a complete yichud where you have the entire amount of zer anpin is in there. Nikra afhu b'shem zivug, and Leah, of course, has also grown to that whole height too. I had a little note on here. I didn't think that not to say it, so I don't remember what it is. Let's see what it says. This number Dalet says Nimsa. What are we doing here? Yeah, Nimsa Shaladas Aleshim Zivug Yaakov Ulea the Arvis the Asip Echachaza Lamata. It's really from the chest downwards. So it's what we call like a half a body or not complete. V'Ladas Yafashah who the Asip Echachaza Lamala. So now, where you thought that maybe you understood that where these different Yichudim are taking place, come think again, because people have different thoughts about it. We went through that apparently in Siman Gimel. Okay, where was I there? That was up there. Okay, now here's a new one. He says Zivad Yisrael V'Leah the Arvis. So he says Od Mavur B'Drusha Nizkar. He says the Malayla Na'asim Shnei Zivugan Dezer Anpin V'Leah. So there's two different Yehudim that take place between Zah and Leah. Ha'echa b'Defilis Arvis Ba'az Shir Kumas Leah Mechachaz Lamata. So Lamal. So there is Leah has not at Arvis. Still, I guess he's saying Leah has not extended. I guess that means that Rachel has not gone down into Bia. Bia yet. V'zivug sheni ba'ulas hashachar. Then there's a second yichud that takes place at the time of ulas hashachar. La'achar shenigdal l'chabaleya, and that's a time when Leah, according to this, over the course of the nighttime, is growing completely down to match the height of Zer Anpin. Could call Shir Kuma Zer Anpin of the whole side of that. Let's see if we can follow along here as best we can. Hakavanot sham b'divrei mefarshim shetiksha b'zecha b'kama kusha v'stiros b'shar b'komo. So it has all different kinds of what stiros and kushios in different places. Here's one. One kamavur b'kama dukti. Shachazivug the Tefilas Arvis, that Zivug, who Zivug the Yaakov and Leah. So that's Arvis, it's Yaakov and Leah. Over Drush Zer Amrin, the Hagdolas parts of Leah, so this was a question maybe we had before. Naasis Machatzos ad Alos HaShachar ba'Alos HaShachar. So he says what? Amrin, the Hagdolah, the growth, continues on. So I think we heard kind of this idea again. It's not something that just happens midnight and boom, she's all the way down. He says the growth of Leah. Let's read again. He says Zeramina the Hakdolos parts of Leah Naasis Machatzos ad Alos HaShachar v'Alos HaShachar Nishlam Kumal. So that's where you see that her whole height is together. Kashir Kuma Zer Anpin, that she's now the height of Zer Anpin for Naasa Zivug. And so that's the time when the Yichud takes place. But wait a minute, he says a drush dalit the Hagdolos parts of Leah and the Asas Mitachilas Alayla. Oh, it's not at the end of the night, it's at the beginning. And at that moment, at the Chutz Alayla, you have a completion of the shear of the amount of the Kumas called Kumazer Anpin of the Va'az Na'az Zivug. And then a Zivug takes place. So also, you can see there's another contradiction over here in another place where it says the Ba'alos HaShachar Na'as Zivug the Yaakov Leah, that the morning light has to come out. Well, Alos HaShachar means the time of the ascendant, I guess. So at any rate, he said Kan Mavur Shana'asa Az Zivug the Yisrael Leah B'Tzarach, because that is then where the Yichud is going to take place. The Ba'alos HaShachar. But in the Kusha of RASHASH, so let's see, he says, let's talk about the first problem. RASHASH, so over there, wherever that was, I guess maybe he means in the body of this text. He says, Shab B'Shefach Uvodas, Magoas Leshen, and we're hearing the name Leshen a few times here. Shecheda Zivug hu the Yaakov Leah. So let's understand the yichud that's taking place. I think he's talking about nighttime. Is with Yaakov Leah. The Homer Kanshan Asa Zivug the Yisrael Leah, and then we have this other word. This other phrase is Yisrael Leah. And that one I saw in different places that Yisrael is supposed to be for the cause of Lamala. and the rest of it is Yaakov, let's say. So he says, Shada'as zivug de Yisrael b'leah, hu mishum shakesha oilo Yaakov l'mala mechachosa de zer anpid, hu nichlal im zer anpid, as he gets up higher over the place where his normality, where his normal place is, he becomes actually incorporated in zer anpid. V'nechshav ke'ilu hu zer anpid atzmo, and so therefore it's as if Yaakov is zer anpid. L'chein devarim kashiv l'holmo, so it's really very hard to really fit this in here. B'divrei Rav, so Shaar Rav Omer, because the Rav says the Hedya, he says specifically that Chazivuk Na'aseim B'chidas HaYisod Sheyesh B'chozad Zer Anpin, that that's where that yichud takes place. B'chidas HaYisod Shanaso Mekodim. So this is the aspect of the Yisod Shenish, that remain Mekodim Shehigdil Zer Anpin, from the time that before that Zer Anpin grew. B'kodem shehigdil zer anpin. Ve'elu lo devorav na'asa chazivug ima yisod amiti de Yaakov she'asa mechachosa l'mala. I don't think I understood that very well. So let's go back a little bit and let's see if I can find a place to start. I'm going to read the whole thing again. So let's see if I could. Got a little bit lost there. V'le'inyan the kusha rishona. Havanda Rabisham B'Shefa Kavadas Maragos Leshem Shalchein Zivuk Hu de Yaakov Leah Omar Kan She'asa Zivuk de Yisrael Leah. So he says it is Yaakov and Leah. But we're saying that it takes place between Yisrael and Leah. Hu Mishum Shakasher Olo Yaakov Lamala Bechachozet Zer Anpin Hu Nichla in Zer Anpin. Now I can understand what he said up to this point. Okay, it's still with him. As the whole most of this doesn't really fit together, but the Rav with the idea of the Rav. What does the Rav say? If I can understand this, he says specifically here. So why are we bringing the concept of Zer Anpin? Yaakov, growing to the point where he's above the chaza and nichlal b'zer anpin. Well, it's the same size as zer anpin. So he says, na'asa im b'chidas yisod sheyesh b'chaza d'zeh b'chidas yisod. And so where is this b'china come from? From an aspect of yisod shenisher mekodem shehigdil zer anpin, which was still there for the time that Zer Anpin grew, before the time that Zer Anpin grew. Now that's where I have a little bit of problem, because I thought we were talking about Yaakov growing. Now he says that Zer Anpin grows, so I'm really confused about it. But according to his thinking, though, at the same time, that it doesn't take place there, but it takes place in the pure place, which is really that I guess Yaakov, I guess he's talking about Yaakov, goes up beyond the chaza and up above that. So a little bit difficult. I think there's some information there that is not in evidence right this minute. He says, Shari Rachamim, and Shari Rachamim, Kosev, let's see, we've got to finish up here. Kosev Hamagia, he said that is Rabbi Yaakov Katzid. I'm trying to think if these are Ashkenaz names. It's like cats. He says, Rabbi Yaakov Katzit, the Yashiv Ba'ofen Acher, to explain this in a different way. The Hamavur B'drush Zeh, what we're talking about in this drush number 2, right? Who Le'inyan Zivug Dekad Shah the Yom Shlishi. So we're coming back onto this again. He said, "B'bo na'asa zivug Yisrael v'leah ba'arvis," and in that in the Kad Shaz, this is where you see this is a yichud between Yisrael and Leah at Arvis. Masha Amar b'kol duchte the zivug the Arvis who the Yaakov v'leah, and where it says that who the pratos Yom Sha'avar is really talking about the previous day. Now that's a little bit too over my pay grade, I think. So there's still stuff missing there and keeping going on. But there exists, so we said so we're seeing that the yichud moving around between the chest and between up above the chest or the neck, so to speak, or a higher level, which he calls the chazal lamala. This is some machlokas there is exactly where it takes place. But there exists the yashiv gam kusha hashniya the bedrush base, this is drush base. That's really what it's talking about. Now, before, I was thinking that the Yichud that we're talking about in Kad Shah, Shaus is really between Yaakov and Rachel, and then it's moving around. First, you have the what is he called, the Acharayim. Then you have the part. Then you have Yichud over succeeding 3 days, and that Yichud is supposed to take place at Sim Shalom. But over here, he says you also have the same clock is working on Leah. The Midrash based Mari Be'inyan Zivug Yisrael V'Leah the Kadshah the Yom Gimel. So it's actually taking place with Yaakov and Leah, Yisrael and Leah on the third day. V'Sham Na'asis Hagdalas Leah. That's where you see that Leah is growing. B'Chatzos Alayla Al Alos HaShachar Na'asa Yimol Zivug Ba'alos HaShachar Ib Yisrael. So another set, different players are different players, and completely different players, because here you're talking about the same Kadshaos for Leah. B'Ele Midrash Dalad Ma'arich of the Inyan Leah de Pratos Yom Sha'omer. So she's not the Leah of the Klal, but the Leah of the Pratos. Now, I don't know what he means by Pratos. Does he mean the way that we are or normally understand it? But then the Yichud of Leah and Yisrael is okay, not really understood real well yet. So of the previous day, and so therefore the Yichud takes place at Yitzod and not at Alos HaShachar. But the Inyan of Kusha Shlishis, Yesh Lomer Gam came al Derek Zeh. We could say the similar way. He says like this: then the Asas Shnei Zivugim ba'Alos HaShachar. There are 2 Zivugim that take place at Alos HaShachar. Ha'echad Yisrael v'lecha v'chasheni the Yaakov v'leah. So he says there's 2 different ones. One is Yisrael v'leah, and the second one is Yaakov v'leah. So that all these 2 Yehudim of Yisrael v'leah and Yaakov v'leah really need a whole explanation by themselves. What about that? He says. There are different ideas of the Shevet Sason, the Ali Nar, and taking from the Nar Shalom. What is that Yichud? Who the parts of Ben Dema. Now we're going back Ben Dema, which is the female aspect of the male. So using slightly different words, is the female aspect of masculinity. How about that sound? The Bepratas Kadsha, which is specifically in regards to Kadsha, but is Bari Indian, the Ale, the Simit base. Apparently we talked about it, and we're going to stop here and maybe get just a little bit in on the next piece. I try once again. I really didn't do much yesterday, trying to find a book. The man does not call me back. Over the course of time, he doesn't always have the books, and I make an order like some from, as if online, and as if I could get it, and it turns out that he doesn't have it, and it takes a long time to get it. He maybe owe me something from 2 years ago, for all I know. This is really where we're at. Okay, let me stop.